I was leading a campaign for LGBT rights in sub-Saharan Africa on behalf of a coalition of AIDS organizations. The hot topic in the field was so-called key populations, men who have sex with men, sex workers, injection drug users, and the intersectionality between criminalization of these groups and the HIV epidemic. It was a really exciting personal career opportunity for me, and also an opportunity to refocus the historically white American field on the populations currently most affected. Now, if it wasn't clear, I am both white and American. So maybe not the best person to root the campaign in the needs of LGBT Africans. And this came into even clearer focus when we hired Michael, an experienced LGBT rights campaigner and gay Nigerian man, as a new staffer. Now, I don't think I need to tell anybody in this room that the nonprofit sector has a diversity problem. According to Nonprofit Quarterly, 90% of board chairs, 80% of board members, and 89% of CEOs are all of the same race, white. And the AIDS world is no different. It's probably more stark there, considering 71% of people living with AIDS are African. And even in the United States, 46% of new infections happen among African Americans, with even higher rates among Black gay men. Yet if you look at the leadership, 10 of the 13 largest AIDS nonprofits are led by white American men. So how did this come to be? Well, partially it's a historical artifact, but we just haven't caught up. And we talk a lot about biased hiring practices and performance evaluations, but are these measures, fixing these, enough? What about at the personal level, when a personal opportunity comes into conflict with our ideals of a diverse, inclusive, equitable workspace? When we hired Michael, I introduced him to the coalition, brought him onto the campaign, and stepped back and gave myself a pat on the back for it. I continued to be interested in this issue as I encountered similar challenges in anti-racist organizing and digital strategy consulting, and years later I submitted it for an Ignite talk. So when I was preparing this presentation, the first thing that I did was I called Michael, and I told him the story that I wanted to tell, and he thanked me for taking on this important issue. And then he told me what he'd been up to in the meantime. With his background in grassroots organizing, Michael built a network of advocates across the African continent and really put the organization on the map as a leader in LGBT rights advocacy. And only then, after years of success, was he able to feel confident that he was being valued for his contributions and not just for his background. For Michael, my stepping back meant that I wasn't even competing for this opportunity and played into insecurities about whether he was really being valued in that role. When he told me that, I walked to the nearest building and began methodically banging my head against it. I couldn't believe that it had taken me that long to realize that my conscientious stepping back could play into the boogeyman of tokenism for Michael. He agreed that it's critical to have people from marginalized communities leading campaigns related to those communities, but he was uncertain of the remedy that I was proposing. And I left the conversation also uncertain about the universal value of stepping back, and left with the question, how, as a person of privilege, do we navigate these situations without putting ourselves forward to be the 5th white face on the conference panel, the 10th man on the governance board, the straight spokesperson for the gay community? There's a lot of people with privilege in this field, and we all want to excel. And career pathways aren't going to magically appear where the patriarchy has already been stomped and where white privilege doesn't give you a leg up. So whatever solutions we come up with, they have to be systemic and they have to be nuanced. Now, remember this guy. If you're wondering, the answer is yes. I recognize the irony of giving this speech on a platform I had to put myself up for over other voices with less access. And I've been struggling with that, and I don't have a satisfactory answer. But that's why I'm here, because there's a lot of questions I don't have satisfactory answers for, and I hope we can ask them together. How do we, as individuals, evaluate specific opportunities that come into conflict with our ideal workplace? And how do we encourage one another to think about this at all? How do we make sure that people with less privilege feel valued for their contributions and not just their backgrounds? And how do we build pathways in our organizations that ensure that all people can grow into roles where they can contribute the most? Thank you.